Hello, everyone. I'm Florian Müller, and as part of the 13th edition of the Shaded View on Fashion Film Festival, I will now have a conversation with journalist and sustainability advocate Bandana Tewari. She oversees the new conscious fashion section of the festival, which is why I want to find out which films exactly she's looking for and what conscious or sustainable fashion means to her. Before I hand over the floor to Madana, I'll briefly introduce myself. Currently, I'm based in Berlin, Germany. I've been working in fashion for 20 years, specialized in PR and guest management for fashion shows. And I also studied psychology and got recently trained to offer psychotherapy. This is why I bring together the topics of mental health, sustainability, and my fashion expertise. I'm also an active member at Fashion Revolution Germany, where I'm in charge of the working group on mental health and sustainability in the fashion industry. And I'm very happy to talk today with a woman who not only brings a lot of experience from the fashion industry, but above all has her heart in the right place. Bandana, I'm so glad to see you. The last time we had contact was a few months ago when you were an inspiring speaker on our sustainability platform 2020-30, the Berlin Fashion Summit. Bandana, please introduce yourself briefly and help us understand your role within the fashion industry.
Thank you, Florian. Thank you so much for speaking with me and giving me this opportunity. Well, my name is Bandana Tewari. I live in Bali. I am by birth from Nepal, but I grew up in India. I'm as much Indian as I'm Nepalese, and now Balinese, perhaps. I worked with Vogue India for 13 years. I was part of the inner core that started the magazine in an amazing country. And after 13 years of working in Vogue, I gratefully and hopefully graciously bowed out of my job, moved to Bali, and pivoted to becoming a sustainability activist in the fashion business. I have loved my part of the journey, and perhaps one of the reasons why I'm speaking to you, Florian, about what we are going to talk about today is based on the changes that I made from very high fashion, which was all beautiful and fluffy and lovely, to living now in the beautiful jungle of Bali and talking about the interconnectedness of nature, talking about conscious consumption, not conspicuous consumption. And I have to say, I feel very passionately about it.
Yeah, interesting. When we talk about fashion, we have to say that it's extremely complicated to have a sustainable fashion brand. And if we're honest, it's impossible, especially when we're talking of large scale production. You can only try to be as sustainable as possible. And that's why sometimes other terms like beneficial, or you mentioned it already, conscious fashion are used. But I must confess that I still like using the term sustainability. Taking into account the name of the new conscious fashion category of a Shaded View on Fashion Film Festival that you're in charge of, I dare to assume which term you prefer. Either way, I kindly ask you to give a definition in your personal words what sustainability, conscious fashion, or whatever you choose means and what relevance fashion has for you.
Yes, I mean, it's a very pertinent question, Florian, because we are all grappling with our own ideas and our own formulas and our solutions for sustainability or being sustainable human beings. So, of course, I believe in all these ideals of sustainability and all these different pillars that govern what it means to be an activist in this field. But on a personal level, somehow, when you say you're a conscious person in the world of sustainability, consciousness brings the unit, you, the individual, into focus. So what it means is that then I have to be responsible for how I think, how I feel, and the changes that I'm going to make to be part of the system that is going to look out for our environment. When we say conscious, it's something that I have to take personally, because conscious comes from consciousness. That is your mind, your brains, your heart, your body, your being on this earth. So for me, conscious fashion is an affirmation that there is a personal responsibility to how you look at sustainability. Because sustainability is a huge umbrella brand. There are people doing amazing stuff in sustainability that I can't possibly do. There are people who are innovating. There are people who are making amazing cloth out of algae and mushroom and vegan leather, and that's their forte. They're innovators. They're into research and development. But I'm not that. So where do I play a role? When I say conscious fashion, then I bring my own responsibility on a day-to-day level to the forefront. How do I buy consciously? How do I pull out my wallet with my hard-earned money consciously to make a conscious, well-informed purchase? So those are all in my hands. If I don't want to use plastic, it is in my hands. So I need to take ownership over what sustainability means for me. Yes, there's so much going on with sustainability, and we applaud that and we celebrate that. But what am I doing personally, individually? What are you doing individually? So putting conscious in front of fashion makes our daily activities of consumption less brutal to the environment because we are conscious about what we are doing.
Yeah, actually, really beautiful explanation. And maybe in future we'll rather use the term conscious instead of sustainable. But was there a key moment that you became involved with sustainability? Where did your interest in this topic come from?
You know, Florian, it's so funny because a lot of people think sustainability is just about, oh, you're just choosing not to wear polyester, you're only going to wear cotton, you're not going to use plastic. I think sustainability as a sort of a life-changing affirmation comes from a lot of pain, of emotional upheaval in your life that can be very personal. For me, it was very personal. When your whole life goes into turmoil, when, let's say in my case, your marriage breaks down, you feel lost, but you're in a high-profile job in vogue and you're pretending to be happy. And then suddenly all the things that you're told to buy and consume, the best bags, the best shoes, they mean nothing because you're so unhappy inside. So the act of sustainability is about being a sustainable human being. And if you're not emotionally sustainable, how are you going to help the universe? How are you going to help your brothers and your sisters who live next to you, beside you, if you are not grounded in yourself? So from a very deep sense of personal unhappiness, I made a lot of changes in my life, which included leaving the bustling city of Bombay. It's the power center of India, leaving that and moving to Bali, leaving Vogue that I worked very hard in and loved every bit of my 13 years and saying, thank you, but I need to go on another journey. Leaving everything that, I'm not trying to be pompous. I feel like I'm sounding a little pompous. So what I'm saying is personally, just dismantling your own life to pursue something new. I didn't know what that newness was going to be, but it came to me when I came to Bali because I'm living in nature. I walk barefoot. There are coconut trees and there are papaya trees all around me. There's chanting, there's worship of nature. There is every god and goddess that's a personification of every form of emotion and intellect that you can think of. Statues strewn all over. You feel so grounded. And that's when I thought, I want to continue to be in fashion, but I want to be in a world of compassionate fashion where we understand what it means to admire, acknowledge the work of people in our business who are not noticed, who are invisible. Also to acknowledge that for everything that we buy and we purchase with so much glee because it's so cheap, that someone is paying the cost. And it's always someone out there in a developing nation, so far away from your glitzy life, sitting in a village, raising children and sewing your buttons. We've forgotten the humanity in our clothes. So living in Bali has been a great reminder because my whole body is planted on the soil. I know it sounds esoteric and sounds a little like, loopy, but it is about feeling connected to so many things around you, that you're not the only person that matters, that there are others that matter, and not just human beings that matter. The plants matter, the animals matter. So therefore, I can say no to fur, I can say no to leather. All that comes integrated into a humanitarian principle that you can live by. And it comes organically. And for me, it certainly did.
Yeah, really interesting. And thank you so much for sharing these beautiful words. But are there also any other aspects which are especially important to you when it comes to sustainability? Do you have also other things you keep in mind talking about that?
Yes, I have many, many aspects of sustainability that interests me. But because of my own heritage, my provenance, where I come from, as I told you, it's Nepal, it's India. I live in Indonesia now, and we have an incredibly rich culture of old wisdom. So I'm no expert. I'm still the student of sustainability. I'm still learning. I still study very hard, and I give full credit to men and women out there who've been tirelessly working in this field for 30, 40 years, and perhaps not even been acknowledged, right? And so for me, the acknowledgement that I know very little, that I need to know more. So the ideas about sustainability is so wide that please let's not pigeonhole ourselves and say, I'm sustainable because I don't eat meat. I'm sustainable because I don't buy leather. I'm sustainable for blah, blah, blah. So many pigeonholing that happens. What we should look at is a holistic sense of who we are, because we are the very people who are consuming in a variety of ways, right? And we've been told that we have to be divided, we have to be segregated in our own body, forgetting that it is this one individual that has to understand the principles of sustainability that actually is philosophical and spiritual. That sustainability is at the heart of what Gandhi used to profess, the principles of ahimsa, which means nonviolence. Nonviolence in thoughts, deeds, and actions. His words. He said nonviolence is not a piece of garment that you wear and take off at will. Its principles has to be in your heart. Of course, I'm paraphrasing, but the idea that you can keep talking about sustainability in a very academic way, but if the change doesn't come from within, from your emotional self, from your gut, so to speak, then how are we going to make change that is authentic? Then it becomes a trend, then it becomes a fleeting moment, then we will cheat and say, okay, this time I will wear leather. This time I will bypass, some sort of absurd principles that are laid out by these big brands and the greenwashing that's happening. We can keep making excuses. So I think for me, sustainability has to be an emotional call, a spiritual call for change. It's a holistic experience. It's not meant to be divided into little parts. If I love you as much as I love myself, and I love the other person next to me, I love the tree, I love the animal, that kind of all-pervading respect and dignity for people and things around us, I think that is a great way to start your journey in sustainability.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm talking quite often about sustainability with other experts. And this was probably the most interesting and also beautiful what I ever heard, especially when you brought that aspect of spirituality and also Gandhi into that. It's quite interesting. And I would really talk to you more about that, maybe in another talk. But also, you mentioned especially that you live right now in Bali. And when we talk about sustainability, we should probably also look at where and how we have grown up, or in which part of the world we are currently located. And you mentioned it already, you grew up in India, traveled the world through your work as a fashion editor, and now you live in Bali, as you mentioned. In your opinion, how does location influence our sustainable behavior in general? What is your opinion on that?
There's a saying, geography is history. Geography is identity. You know, I think we've been living in a world that became so industrialized, became so globalized, and then became so homogenized that we all became too similar. Similar for all the superficial reasons that I can go to Tokyo, I can go to Jakarta, I can be in Bombay, I can be in Berlin, but I can buy the same t-shirt, the same hoodie, the same jeans wherever I go, forgetting that a country like Japan has its own culture, that a country like Indonesia has its own culture, that a country like Germany has its own culture. So my point is not to say that we shouldn't be similar. We are similar because our humanity is similar, but we should be different because our cultures are so vibrant and diverse. And that's why diversity is such a big thing in the fashion world right now, because we recognize that difference matters. Difference in the way our cultures differ. If I came to you in Berlin, I want to know all the nuances of how you live in your country. You know, what is it? What do your grandparents tell you? Just like if you came to my country, you would want to know the same thing. Deep dive into our cultural provenance. So yes, we should be similar. Universally, human beings should be similar in the humanity and the compassion and the principles that we live by. But the difference and the vibrancy and the color is understanding that where you live, where you've grown up, your region is different. It's characteristic, it's individualistic, and has so much to give in terms of inspiration to other people all over the world. Just like I get inspired by haiku poetry from Japan. I love the crafts that come out of Mexico. I love the ikats that come out of Sumba, an island in Indonesia. Being specific and giving gratitude and I think, just being humble about the journey of culture in different parts of the world, to celebrate that difference, not say that we're all the same. Why the hell do we want to be the same? We love the difference. What I would love to see in you and me, the similarity, is that thread of humanity and kindness.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. And I mean, Bandana, you're not only a really amazing person, but of course also an experienced professional. And of course, you know the fashion and sustainability industries very well. But tell me how the collaboration with Diane Pernay came about. What did you want to achieve with this new conscious fashion category?
First of all, thank you, Diane, if you're listening to this. What an opportunity. You are exemplary in what you've done with this amazing film festival. And I feel extremely privileged because for the first time, this edition of Shaded View of Fashion has fashion conscious. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Conscious fashion as a category. There are 3 special curators. And we are very privileged because to be included in an amazingly popular platform of fashion films and have sustainability and sustainable films to be at the forefront, to be invited to that, I am eternally grateful. I've known Diane for a long time. We met in India at a time when fashion weeks in India had just begun, and she was very much part of it. And so we've known each other for a long time. And I've always gone through the kind of incredible work that she's been doing. I mean, literally, she's the first fashion blogger that ever existed. Like that is something. And so this is a shout out to the category that I'm curating, conscious fashion. We are asking for filmmakers from any part of the world to please submit your film. The submission is for free. And so that I don't get it wrong, you can submit it on filmfreeway.com/ASVOFF. Okay. Now, the idea of submitting these films is not to be daunted by when was it made, how long is it? It can be in any form. If you have a cartoon that talks about sustainability, please submit it. If it's in manga style, submit it. If it's long form documentary, please submit. It doesn't matter. The idea is that we are delighted to have entries that come in that talk about sustainability from different regions of the world. So I am literally shouting out to the countries that sometimes get left behind in this wonderful dialogue of sustainability, which is the Asian countries, the Indian subcontinent countries, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Afghanistan, the Middle Eastern countries. Please, Bangladesh. I hope we get entries from Bangladesh and all the beautiful countries in Africa. I think it's a given that the Western world is so profoundly developed that, we don't really need to do these shout outs because you get it. But where I come from, we are a lot of people. And so I really beseech filmmakers to give it a shot and submit the films. The last date for submission is September 31st. So you do have a bit of time. You can go onto the website and get all the details. And if you would like, you can get onto my Instagram at Behave Bandana, and I'll be posting regularly to update you as to where you can upload for free. And I think it's very exciting, don't you think, Florian? I feel really excited, when sustainability becomes sort of cool and mainstream and hip and sexy. I think that's something that's moving in the right direction.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I'm also excited. And I mean, you spoke, or I asked the question how it came along with Diane Panay. And I know also for quite a long time, for almost 20 years, and talking about sustainability, I just thought while you were speaking, that of course she also made sure that young artists could sustain, right? I mean, we should also keep that in mind when we talk about sustainability. And I was actually wondering also if you have any particular topics in mind you prefer for the competition, but it sounded like that you're really interested in getting a very wide spectrum of different films. And you mentioned that the deadline got extended because officially for the other sections, the deadline is end of July, I guess. And you mentioned that for your section, the conscious fashion section, it got extended to end of September.
Yes, September.
Right, yeah.
As far as the topics are concerned, there are no holds barred as long as you talk about the sustainability has to be the underlying platform for expressing your thoughts. But, there's so many types of storytelling. And I was telling you before we started the session, I've been researching, and there are amazing storytelling that's happening from the point of view of a young girl who is working in a factory in Cambodia, for instance, to a young boy who's making sneakers in Bandung, which is a manufacturing hub for fast fashion companies in Indonesia. There are all kinds. There are joyous stories. There are heartbreaking stories. So no, I'm not going to put a cap on what kind that I'm preferably looking for, because I'm a writer. I think storytelling happens in a variety of ways. And if your narrative is compelling, and if it is within the field of sustainability, the reason I'm curating the section, then you are absolutely welcome to submit your film.
Beautiful. And as a PR person and guest manager who specialized in fashion shows, I of course love them when they're well done and meaningful, I would say. But I must admit that I find fashion films also quite exciting, and realize their potential to dig deeper into certain genres through formats such as documentaries. If it doesn't require a new collection to be made, I find it even better, to be honest. What do you like about fashion films? What topics are you personally interested in? What is your opinion on that?
I love fashion films. And funnily enough, I told Diane this, and I'm telling you now, Florian, I did my master's in filmmaking.
Oh, I didn't know.
And it's perhaps my joy and, one of my first loves, so to speak. I love filmmaking. And I love fashion films for the reason that in a very esoteric, fleeting way, it transports you. You forget for a moment that it's not just things, that it's not just the thing that you're wearing. That thing becomes elevated, that thing, that product, whether it's a watch, pair of shoes, a beautiful dress, sort of elevates into a realm of art and creativity, of imagination and daydreaming. And so we are so used to catalogs of beautiful things in fashion, things being sold in malls. Like, it's so harsh, the way things are sold to us. It's almost inhumane. It's like banging at you constantly. And fashion films become ethereal, you know? They're softer, beautiful ways, because I think it communicates creativity. The product is the aftermath. What it communicates is the creative soul of the teams that work towards it, not just the ones who made the product, but also the ones who made the film. You know, all the stakeholders in generating this beautiful narrative. So it's like reading a beautiful poem. It can transport you. You don't sit there and necessarily think about who that author is, or, you know, you don't even care, because as long as it allows you to float in your own imagination. So I think it takes away, fashion films takes away from the brutality of consumerism, you know, to put it in a very harsh way. It takes away that brutality and then puts it in a more gentle, ephemeral, bouncy world of imagination and creativity. And that's why I love fashion films.
Cool. And yeah, for the conscious fashion category of a Shaded You on Fashion Film Festival, of course, many exciting films should be submitted, as you said it already. But are there ways we are able to support the festival through donations or other means? Is there anything which might be important to, where you might need support?
Well, all I know is that you need to put in your submissions onto the website, which is filmfreeway.com. Hashtag, not hashtag, /ASVOFF. So, you know, maybe we should ask Diane, because I'm sure there are other ways you can contribute. But for my section, my primary concern is that we have films. I don't care. I'm not going to be the judge and say good, bad, or ugly. It's not about that. If you're excited about your film, please submit it. And, you know, you'd be part of this big dialogue, be part of the first time that sustainability films are going to be introduced in this amazing film festival.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this was probably the PR in me that I was thinking about how we could support in sharing, spreading the word. But for sure, I'm going to ask that to Diane. And I also make sure that I spread the word about not only about the section, but about the whole festival.
Well, I suppose a way to spread it is like, if anyone's listening and you have friends who have a film, elbow them, nudge them, tell them to, you know, a lot of young filmmakers who make short films and, you know, make it out of their heart and passion and very little budget, feel scared because the world out there can look so polished with filmmaking, and, you know, so be a good friend, encourage your friends to participate. And yeah, spread the word on social media.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, especially that you also mentioned that we should make sure that a lot of people hear about it, and not only always the same ones, right? And the word is so huge, and it would be interesting to see more talented.
I think just going on to the Shaded View of Fashion website when this event happens, it doesn't matter even if you don't submit films, and you see the array of films, the bouquet of films that are presented that are going to ignite your imagination and give you creative fodder. If you're an artist, if you're a designer, if you're a filmmaker, if you're a poet, it doesn't matter. It's just fuel for your creative mind. So I don't think it's even about submitting a film in the end. It's about participating and looking at how wonderful our world is and how creative our human beings are, and to participate in their journey and be inspired by that.
Totally agree. Yeah. I mentioned Fashion Revolution earlier, and I believe you know the movement very well. It's much about raising awareness of problems in the fashion industry, and at the same time, of course, creating ideas for change. for my definition of sustainability, inclusivity also plays an important role. What problems do you encounter in your everyday work, and how inclusive is the fashion industry in your opinion?
Oh, well, it pretends to be inclusive and it looks visually inclusive. But I wonder if that happens within walls, in conference rooms, in board meetings, where policies are being made, where changes are being envisioned. So there's a lot of lip service done to this whole idea of inclusivity, diversity, gender, LGBTQ rights, all of it that we see now cover after cover in high fashion magazines. But it doesn't take away from the fact that a lot of the times they seem to be quite distant from the policies that exist within the very countries where these magazines are coming out. I think if we really want to make change with the written word and the visual medium, with high-powered, high-browed magazines and newspapers, then I think we need to sit back a little bit and look at the politics and the society of the times and see where we can create influence to make real changes. If you're going to be in a country that does not accept LGBTQ rights and your magazine is going to talk about diversity, what is that? That's paying lip service, So you just want to sound like you are of the moment, but you are unaware that there are governments and systems and nations and policies that are still marginalizing a massive section of our society. So I want, for me, the challenge has always been that we have to talk about real issues, real problems in a fun way, but to also engineer solutions. We have to pave the way for a dialogue to happen where it results in change for real people to lead dignified lives that they have not had a chance to so far. So it's all hunky-dory to make it look all pretty in a magazine, but what is the impact that you're making in policy change? And can you do that through the magazines that you run, through the words that you write, through the visuals that you create? I think we need authenticity in that dialogue.
Yeah, totally agree. And also coming to the next question, then, the more one deals with the topic of sustainability in fashion, the more one must also deal with the topic of colonialized structures. What is your opinion on that topic?
On colonized fractures, that's deep. How long you got? Yes, we have, I come from a country that was colonized for a very, very long time by the British. And so we have learned to understand what all those nuances are growing up. I mean, we benefited a lot from, let's say, being able to speak English. It's now my mother tongue in the sense that I can't speak any other language except Nepali, perhaps, to go about in my world. So not to take away from all the benefits. But what happens with this sort of fractured, colonized world, which is now coming alive more and more, when so-called colonization is over, is the deep damage that has been caused over millennia because of colonization. So for instance, if you come to the countries in parts of Asia, for instance, that have been heavily colonized, the way we look at fashion, the way we appreciate fashion, the dialogue in fashion, everything has a very Western lens because that's all we learned. We forgot our own provenance, we forgot our own heritage, that we had our own customs, our own rituals, our own clothes, our own colors. We kind of put them on the side because that's not gentrified enough to talk about. Everything that's gentrified comes from this fractured colonial mindset that we've been trained to believe that you're not good enough till you look towards the West. And so for us, a lot of us, it's breaking those barriers without being angry because it happened in the past. But let's recognize what are those patterns that we're carrying forward while we talk about What could be very simple things like clothes, but clothes leads to a dialogue about identity. Identity leads to dialogues about integrity, of heritage, provenance, pride, ancestors. So I don't take clothes lightly at all. So for us to understand how to appreciate clothing and see the significance of it, then we need to get out of this fractured, colonized mind and embrace the culture that you were born in. As I said, it's the humanity that should be common to all of us now. But cultures should be wonderfully different.
Thank you. Thank you for that really beautiful answer. And I think I couldn't have done it in such a short time. Amazing. Transparency, supply chain law, even the hashtag "Who Made My Clothes" are topics of sustainable movements. And do you notice a change in the industry that fashion professionals suddenly want to know more and question? Do you see any change there?
I absolutely do. And kudos to Fashion Revolution, really, who made my clothes. All these digital revolutions that took place put the consumer with a smartphone at the forefront of asking questions directly to the brands, questioning their integrity, their transparency, their accountability, because we are living in, I'm old, but the millennials and the post-millennials are now more and more equipped to make better, well-informed decisions about what they purchase, because everything is at their fingertips now. So we should take advantage of that. I think it is extremely important to see the backstory of any brand, because there is a backstory. The way I grew up in fashion, all we was shown was the beauty, the aesthetics of a beautiful garment on a beautiful woman on a ramp. And then the curtains were drawn. No one peeks behind the curtains. But now we do. We can, thanks to all these wonderful entities that have surfaced, including Fashion Revolution, Extinction Rebellion, you name it. You go to Ellen MacArthur Foundation website, what you can learn from the work that's been done for so many years now at your fingertips. I think we have no right to dismiss a vast majority of people who are in the supply chain, who have been invisible for so long. They've been voiceless for so long. They've been underpaid for so long. And unfortunately, they also come from a world where governments don't support them to have a voice, because they're developing nations. So we need to play a much bigger role as consumers to hold brands accountable. We are spending our money. We want to know where our money is going. We want to know what the brand is doing. Those are the fundamental things that should drive consumer behavior. We have a right to know, because it's our money that is being spent. So let's stop pretending that a big chunk of the world doesn't exist, because that big chunk of the world is making most of the fashion clothes that most of us are wearing. And it's all happening in poorer countries. And we owe it to them to lend our voice with all the privileges that we have, privileges of education, affluence, all that we have. We owe it to them to raise our voice, to support them.
Yeah, totally agree. And I mean, it's good to hear that there is a change, and it seems like, we are on the right path right now. And now maybe a little jump, because I would like to hear from you one thing where you were inconsistent and not as sustainable as you would possibly like to be. What is that? And I say by purpose only one thing, because I'm aware that you probably might say there are a lot of things, but share one thing in your life where you would say you're not that sustainable as you would like to be. What is it?
Oh, this is horrible. There is one and it kills me. Because I want to travel. I can't wait for the pandemic to end, and I want to travel everywhere, and I want to travel a lot. But I also know what kind of a massive carbon footprint travel has today. And it's not enough now to say, I'm going to go to Hawaii, but I've signed up online because somewhere that I don't even know, 2,000 trees are going to be planted because I've given $20 for it. I don't know. All this kind of like these systems to make us feel less guilty about traveling. So I go crazy thinking about, oh my God, what does it mean for travel when everything opens up? Because I want to travel, but how can I do it without being an idiot? How can I be an activist and then go around flying all over the world, zipping around like I did before? That would be, not just not sustainable, but I would be lying about what I stand for, wouldn't I? So I'm trying to find a way out. If anyone has great solutions, I know one thing I can do is travel less. But, I would want to travel really far away, which would have a big carbon footprint. What am I going to do? So that's my biggest challenge right now.
Yeah, I mean, what else should I say? I also love traveling, and it's mean, when we are aware of what we're causing or damaging to what we do to the nature. But hopefully there would also be a solution soon. I don't know. But I firmly believe that we can only make a difference if we also reach the mainstream. For me, the most important thing is to give short, appropriate answers quickly so that we don't lose these people when we talk about sustainability. And therefore, the following situation: a good friend wants to shop sustainably and has no idea about the industry. What standard advice would you give to a person who really asks you? And I always keep saying, my mother asked me, they heard about sustainability, it's all over the media. And what would be your standard advice that someone could do sustainable shopping?
Buy something that you're not going to throw away, period. If you buy something thinking that you're going to wear it a few times and put it in a dustbin, that's not sustainable. So make a choice, by all means, buy something lovely. We need to support the industry. We love beautiful things, but buy things that you're going to keep, not throw away.
Good. And I'm happy that you didn't say, read a book, watch a movie, do some extra studies, because I always keep saying we have to be quick. And it's not that I would have always a short answer, but if it's getting too complicated, if it's too long, for sure we're going to lose these people and they're not going to listen anymore. But thank you for that short answer. And now coming to the last question. What is especially important to you when it comes to sustainability in fashion, or what annoys you, or is there anything what makes you happy? Is there anything else you want to get out of the way before we conclude this conversation?
Sure. I speak a lot about sustainability and spirituality because I believe that being a sustainable human being is an act of kindness, of compassion. It's what we can say, the Buddha in you, right? That you are going to be that compassionate person. And in the words of Mahatma Gandhi, who always talked about taking personal ownership, whether it was about civil disobedience, whether it was saying no to a political system that didn't work at that time, whatever, it was about be the change that you want to see in the world. It was about personal ownership. And for me, that is very important. And I'm saying that for me personally, because as I told you, I'm a student still. So my only way of telling you genuinely what I feel about sustainability is what my own life experiences have taken me through, and my own sort of the wisdom that my culture has brought to my life. And it's there. In Sanskrit, there's a beautiful term. It's called Vasudeva Kutumbakam, which means the universe is your family. So, we grew up with these beautiful terms that can be expanded into essays that can go into 50 pages. But they're all, as you said, how you like little crisp, poignant answers. So we grew up with that. So I focus now on what was taught to me as a child, what my heritage taught me about wisdom, about kindness, about compassion, and can I bring that into the world that I understand about sustainability? And for me, it's becoming more and more spiritual to be a kind human being that doesn't want to disrupt the environment, to look out for animals and people, to respect, show integrity to all species around you. You know, that act of kindness is a very elevated spiritual act. It is understanding the oneness with nature. It is understanding the interconnectedness between us and them, and not just people, but species. We're just one species, human beings, and there are millions out there. That interconnectedness with the cosmos from a micro level, from a molecular level, what quantum mechanics teaches us, to a macro level, cosmology, you know, to understand that we're all unified. It's scientific and spiritual and sustainable.
Yeah. Again, very beautiful and wise words. Bandana, we have reached the end of our talk, and I must say I had great expectations, and it did not disappoint me at all. Stay as great as you are, and I hope you will get a lot of exciting films submitted in the Conscious Fashion section of the 13th Shaded You on Fashion Film Festival. I'm very excited, and I say goodbye to all of the viewers, to you, of course. And for any additional information, please check out the website of the festival, Shaded You on fashionfilmfestival.com. So, bye.
Thank you, Florian. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Diane.